the plants but number 3 have 6 or 7 tomato or blossom clusters on the main stem at this point.
That's a cluster every 9 or so inches.
Most plants have a couple more clusters on the other sucker stems high on the plant.
Plant 7, with no suckers removed, has 7 more clusters on its sucker stems, just as many as the total for the main stem.
Leaving on the low suckers gives twice as many clusters by week 12.
But the tomatoes from those might only be half as big.
Also, counting the early tomatoes doesn't really compare to the plants since the tomatoes vary so much in size.
Then we'll just have to weigh all the tomatoes.
We started picking the tomatoes in week 12.
We pick them as soon as they start to turn red.
Otherwise, some varmint,
Probably a squirrel.
may steal the red ones.
We've lost a couple already.
These 2 are on plant 6, one of our deep planting standards.
From the 4th cluster to the main stem.
This is where we weigh our tomatoes. We're measuring with grams instead of ounces because it's more scientific. This tomato weighs about 150 grams.
This weighs about 125 grams. Here we let the tomatoes ripen.
It would taste better if we let them ripen on the vine.
We'll check that out later.
Week 15 results. In the growth race, the 2 shallow plants have crept back into the lead.
Ha ha! You said all the 7-hour sunlight plants would end up the same.
But you said all the shallow plants, but the shallow plants would fall behind.
Good grief. Well, here are the first tomato production graphs.
Shaded and old dirt plants are behind here too.
So far, number 5, shallow, has the most tomatoes, and number 6, standard, has the most tomato weight.
Most of the tomatoes still have to ripen. While we are waiting, let's do another science study. I had Tommy do a couple more graphs for you to look at. This is a graph of the weekly average growth of all your plants added together, covering weeks 2 through 11. How do you account for all the ups and downs?
We already found that growth can depend on sunlight, so different amounts of sunshine in different weeks is the reason.
Maybe, sort of. But can you think of something else we can measure that might also affect growth differently in different weeks? Something that depends on, and goes along with, changes in sunlight.
How hot it is?
Very good. Now, here is a second graph Tommy made of the weekly average of daily high temperatures. How do the graphs compare?
They look a little bit alike.
How about looking at the relationship between temperature and growth?
Another graph?
The average growth for the week against the average high temperature for the week.
This time enter your temperature and growth data into the special statistical analysis app that I had Tommy put on your iPad.
Here are all of our data points graphed.
That is not a straight line.
No, but you were just lucky in your sunshine study. This scatter plot is the kind of result that scientists obtain all the time. What they have to do a lot is to figure out how to draw the best line through all these points. Why don't you try to draw a straight line that comes as close as possible to all of these different points?
Right here. So most points wait. Yes, I think this works.
Here, we
Here.
That's a very nice guess at a straight line for those points. However, we have computer software here to figure out the best lines for us automatically. All you have to do is click a button and the best line between the points, called the linear least squares plot, appears, like this, in red. See? Oh my goodness. Your line is almost identical to the computer's least squares plot. That's an incredibly good first try for you guys. You're both simply awesome. Congratulations. Oh, yes. The least squares plot comes with an equation. I, inches of growth per week, equals 0.35 times T, the average weekly high temperature, minus 18.9. And note the slope. It means that for every 1 degree increase in T, the weekly growth will go up 0.35 of an inch. That's about 3 degrees increase in temperature to get 1 inch of extra growth. That's a pretty nice correlation, even though the data is noisier than your earlier sunshine graph.
It's week 22.
Most of the tomatoes have been harvested, and the results are clear. Let's summarize the findings. The first tip was not to use old dirt, because of plant diseases.
Sure enough, plant 3 in old dirt got sick.
Plant number 3 has been stunted by some illness.
I think it's dead.
It died weeks ago.
The growth graph shows number 3 only grew about 2 feet tall, less than a third as tall as the healthy plants.
Still, the brave little guy grew 4 tomatoes.
Good tip.
The old dirt plants also didn't have any fertilizer.
The other old dirt plant was number 8.
While tomato 8 didn't seem to get sick, with no new fertilizer, it never grew over 5 feet, only 2/3 as high as the other plants.
And it didn't even produce 20 tomatoes, less than half the other healthy plants.
Good tip.
The "don't plant shallow" tip was suggested to give more roots by planting deeply, our standard, or horizontally, for a stronger plant.
But the shallow plants turned out tallest.
The shallow plants averaged 93 inches tall, compared to 82 inches for our standard number 6 planted deep in the 7-hour sunlit zone. Interestingly, the horizontally planted tests came out in between, averaging 90 inches.
What happened to 12 feet? That's 144 inches.
That was sort of an upper limit for all types of indeterminate tomatoes. I did also find a website for a commercial grower in Alabama of just early girl tomatoes. It reports plants of 6 to 8 feet.
Well, ours grew up almost 8 feet.
In other ways, the results are more impressive. One thing may be too depressing to mention, but I can say that their tomatoes are 3 or more times larger than ours.
Wow!
In any event, neither approach to grow extra roots gives a bigger plant.
But What about the tomato yield?
The total weight of tomatoes also was greatest for the shallow plants at 4.2 kilogram average. Least for standard, or deep, number 6 at 3.8 kilograms. With the horizontal plants again intermediate at 3.9 kilograms average.
So, trying for extra roots by planting deep or horizontal didn't give either bigger plants or yields of tomatoes.
Bad tip.
The final tip was to remove the lower suckers to give a stronger central stem for bigger tomatoes.
This didn't seem to influence plant height, with our deep standard number 6 and its neighbor number 7, with suckers removed, both at 82 inches. As shown by the tomato number and weight graphs for week 22, plant 7, with lower suckers not removed, showed a spurt in tomato production at week 17, owing to tomatoes from those extra lower sucker stems. Because of that extra spurt, plant 7 produced a bigger total of 73 tomatoes, compared to less than 50 for the other plants with 7 hours of direct sunlight. Moreover, the total weight yield for plant 7 was 5.7 kilograms, compared to only 4.2 kilograms for the average of the shallow plants, which were the best of the other 7-hour sunlight plants.
So, not removing the lower suckers meant both more tomatoes and a greater total weight of tomatoes.
Bad tip.
On the other hand, comparing the weight distributions for the same two plants, as in these histograms, does show that you get an increase in average tomato weight from 78 to 102 grams by removing the lower suckers.
That's a 30% increase in average tomato weight by removing suckers.
Good tip.
It all depends on what you want.
Siri, what was the other thing about the tomatoes in Alabama you don't want to tell us about?
Are you sure you can deal with it?
You can handle it.
Well, they claim they get 300 tomatoes from each plant.
Wow!
That's impossible. We'll be lucky if we get 60 each.
It's a lot sunnier and hotter in Alabama.
I bet ours tastes better though.
Taste better? I heard that. You're not just weighing the tomatoes, you're eating them! Arrgh!
Don't worry, Tom. We'd never eat you.
Maybe.
We wouldn't.